Kita ba?
Okay. Kita.
Okay, rinig naman. Okay, so good evening, everyone. I am Eliza Singzon. I'll be discussing pharmacy rationale for the written Revalida 2021, as well as the 2020 remeds ratio. So, first question, the utmost consideration in selecting the best drug to give is A, selectivity of effect, cost, maximal efficacy, or potency. So the answer for this is maximal efficacy. Okay, so if you have any questions pala, feel free to message it in the chat box lang. Okay. So the maximal efficacy of the drug, as we know, we want a drug which produces the maximum effect or maximal response. And the efficacy is defined as the tendency to activate the receptor. And it is the degree to which a drug is able to produce a response. So if we compare two drugs, for example, there's a 50% effective drug and there's a 90% effective drug, we choose the drug which produces more effect, which is the 90%. Next, we define here the other choices. Selectivity of effect is the ability to preferentially produce a particular effect. And this is related to the drug binding to specific receptors. So this is more important if we want the drug to produce a certain effect, such as, for example, beta-selective drugs, for beta blockers. We prefer those who have affinity to specific receptors in order to avoid adverse effects that we don't want to manifest in the patient. Next, cost. This is important also when we do cost minimization or as we cater to the patient, especially when prescribing drugs, especially, for example, generic drugs. Next, the potency is the amount of drug required to produce a response. So when we say a drug is potent, it needs a low dose in order to produce an effect. So here, sorry. Okay. So this is a better illustration of the Emax and the potency. So Emax here, we showed two drugs, drug A and drug B. They have the same Emax but different potency. So the dose is increased. So the dose is increased when So the dose is increased, kunyari, less potent yung drug, mas mataas yung EC50 niya. But if lower yung EC50, meaning less yung dose required to produce the Emax. So this is better. Kasi na-attain niya na yung Emax even with a low dose. Okay? And this is just an illustration also for the Emax of several drugs. Okay. So next question, a drug that has the affinity to the receptor but no intrinsic activity. So these are the choices and the answer is from the key is partial agonist. However, we submitted a correction for this. The more suitable answer for this question would be antagonist, since competitive antagonists are drugs that bind to or very close to the agonist receptor in a reversible way without activating the effector system. So same siya na no intrinsic activity, it just bound to the receptor. Okay, so this is a better illustration to compare several agonists and antagonists. Okay. Okay, so an agonist is the drug that activates the receptor, which both have the affinity and efficacy or intrinsic activity. So when we say agonist, it activates the receptor. And if it is a full agonist, can you see my pointer? Okay. So if you can see my pointer here, the full agonist produces the maximal response, meaning it has high affinity and high intrinsic activity. If it is a partial agonist, it produces less than maximal response or submaximal efficacy, meaning it has high high affinity and low intrinsic activity. Kaya different dapat yung sagot dito kasi sabi, no intrinsic activity. Pag partial, meron pa rin siyang activity. Hindi lang same nung full agonist. Okay, so next, antagonist, it is devoid of intrinsic activity, and if it's competitive, it binds reversibly and it is surmountable. So when we say surmountable, when we add additional substrate compared to the agonist, it can overcome the capacity of the antagonist. On the other hand, when it is non-competitive, it produces irreversible interaction with the receptor. So no matter the amount of substrate we add, the Emax still decreases. Okay, and then inverse agonist naman, it binds to the same receptor but produces an opposite response. Ito. Okay. So the next question, a 38-year-old school teacher have been having palpitation for a month already. So on consult, a 12-lead ECG showed atrial fibrillation with rapid ventricular response, and 2D echo showed moderate to severe mitral stenosis. So the following drug must be given to prevent stroke. So the choices are A, rivaroxaban, B, dabigatran, C, apixaban, or D, warfarin. So the answer here is D, warfarin. So bakit warfarin yung answer for this one? The standard treatment for patients with mitral stenosis who require oral anticoagulation for stroke prevention in atrial fibrillation is warfarin. So we know that patients with mitral stenosis have higher risk for developing atrial fibrillation as well as leading to stroke. So ito yung iba pang choices, yung indications niya. So isa-isahin natin. Bakit hindi sila yung answer? Okay, so yung rivaroxaban, it is more indicated for prevention of venous thromboembolism in patients following hip or knee surgery. And it is for prevention of stroke in patients with atrial fibrillation. Pero to compare it to warfarin, this is more particular for patients without valvular involvement. Okay, so ganun din yung sa apixaban, it lowers the rate for VTE. Dabigatran, the other choice naman din, it is approved for prevention of VTE in patients undergoing hip or knee surgery. And it also reduces the risk of stroke and embolism with non-valvular atrial fibrillation. Okay, so ang important kasi sa warfarin, basta may valvular involvement and prophylaxis for stroke, ito yung binibigay. So kunyari, ayun, valvular involvement with mitral stenosis or in patients with artificial or prosthetic heart valves. Okay, clear ba so far or mabilis? Okay naman. Okay, so next question from 2021 Russia. An 80-year-old male presents with thyromegaly, leukopenia, elevated thyroid function test. He was diagnosed to have Graves' disease. And the best treatment option is, so ito yung choices. Hinighlight ko yung age dito because it is an important consideration for giving treatment to patients with Graves' disease. So the explanation for this is that radioactive iodine is preferred treatment for patients who are elderly who are poor surgical candidates. These are the other indications. Radioactive iodine may also be given to patients who failed response to drug therapy, have adverse drug reactions to anti-thyroid drugs, if there's any recurrence after thyroid surgery, or for ablating the thyroid remnant post-thyroid surgery. So ito yung explanation for the different choices bakit hindi siya yung answer. So anti-thyroid agents like PTU or propylthiouracil is usually controlled for hyperthyroidism. However, it is known for adverse drug reactions. And since our patient is already 80 years old, we try to avoid using this to prevent these adverse drug reactions, especially agranulocytosis, severe hepatitis, vasculitis, acute arthralgia. So next naman, dun sa another choice is thiocyanate. So thiocyanate is a kind of an anionic inhibitor together with perchlorate and pertechnetate. And its mechanism of action is to block iodide transport and uptake. However, this is associated with aplastic anemia, kaya hindi siya commonly used for patients with Graves' disease. Next naman, again, so Lugol solution and then surgery. So again, elderly patients has high surgical risk, thereby making them poor surgical candidates. Okay siya kung relatively young yung patient na given sa case, it helps reduce the size and vascularity of the thyroid gland. So kaya hindi ito yung answer dun sa question, and preferably radioactive iodine. So next question, a 50-year-old male develops urinary retention. So DRE is consistent with enlarged prostate gland, and you will give a drug that will A, contract the detrusor muscle, B, contract the bladder sphincter muscle, C, relax the detrusor muscle, and or D, relax the urethral muscle. So for this question, the key given, the answer was contract the detrusor muscle. However, we submitted a correction for this one because we may consider relax the urethral muscle for the answer. Since patients with benign prostatic hyperplasia who presents with urinary retention are usually prescribed with alpha-1 blockers. So we know na yung example, mga prazosin, tamsulosin, it relaxes the bladder neck or the urethral muscle, thereby improving urine flow rates. Pero siguro for here, baka kaya nila in-answer yung contraction of the detrusor muscle. There's this drug given for patients with urinary retention, which is betanicol, which is a cholinergic agent. So di ba alam natin kapag parasympathetic, it contracts the detrusor muscle to improve the urine flow rate. Kaya magkakaroon ng excretion. Pero mas consistent kasi yung relaxation of the urethral muscle for the mechanism of action ng prazosin. Okay. Ito. So, when we say, kasi yung dun sa case natin, sinabi na may prostate involvement, di ba? Na may BPH on DRE exam. Kaya usually, yun nga, binibigay natin prazosin. Pero kung hindi siya sinabi na BPH and urinary retention lang, pwede siguro tama itong contraction of the detrusor muscle when we give cholinergic agents. Okay. So next question, a 40-year-old female consults because of uncontrolled diabetes. So you added an SGLT2 inhibitor and cautions her of this possible problem because of urinary spillage of glucose. So the answer here is urinary tract infection. So it is well known that SGLT2 inhibitors inhibits the absorption of glucose and leads to glycosuria. So kapag may glucose sa urine, it makes us prone to develop urinary tract infection as well as possibly vaginal infections. So sinama ko lang dito yung mga usually tinatanong na side effects sa mga antidiabetic drugs. So for alpha-glucosidase inhibitors such as yung miclitol or acarbose, usually flatulence or dyspepsia naman yung side effect niya kasi yung action niya more on sa intestinal absorption naman. Diba? Ito kasi sa kidney, so UTI and vaginal infections. And then here common din tinatanong thiazolidinediones. Ano yung example ng thiazolidinediones na alam nyo so far? You can put it na lang sa chat box. Yeah, okay. So yung thiazolidinediones, yung common na tinatanong dyan, kunyari merong CHF, congestive heart failure yung patients or edematous, contraindicated siya for these patients kasi ang adverse effect niya is water retention and macular edema. Tapos yung insulin naman, it is commonly known for the side effect hypoglycemia kasi yung absorption niya directly nga sa bloodstream, especially it is administered subcutaneously or maybe intravenous. So prone ang patients magkaroon ng hypoglycemia. And then, okay, here, ganun din. So this is an important slide for insulin, usually, and sulfonylureas, such as glibenclamide, glyburide. Yung mga adverse effects niya din, hypoglycemia, yung usually tinatanong sa kanila. And then, for metformin, usually lactic acidosis. I just emphasize here na lang yung mga usual na tinatanong kasi sila yung common na nangyayari. Okay, so this is a slide or a mnemonic from my friend. So okay, so GSM, weight loss, tinatanong din to. So ano yung mga anti-diabetic drugs na usually nagkakos ng weight loss? So para mabilis nating matandaan, GSM, kunyari, so GLP agonists, SGLT2 inhibitors, and metformin leads to weight loss. So if, for example, we have a diabetic patient who is obese, we usually prescribe metformin kasi yung advantage niya, it causes weight loss sa patient. So next naman, for weight gain, TIMS. So examples of these are thiazolidinediones, insulin, meglitinides, and sulfonylureas. So tandaan niyo yung mga drugs under these kasi pwedeng ibigay dyan na which of the following anti-diabetic drugs causes weight gain in patients. Kaya, and then, okay. So ito naman yung SIMP for hypoglycemia, sulfonylureas, insulin, meglitinides, and pramlintide usually causes hypoglycemia in patients. Okay. So next question, a 30-year-old G3P2 on her 32 weeks age of gestation consults because of 2 weeks fever. So chest x-ray showed right apical infiltrates not seen in the chest x-ray done the year before. And she must be given, the answer is 2-HRZE and 4-HR. So important here, tandaan natin for pregnant patients or patients with HIV din, same lang yung binibigay na first line drug for patients with tuberculosis, which is 2-HRZE, the intensive phase, and then 4-HR, the maintenance or continuation phase. So so the first line anti-TB drugs are safe except for streptomycin. Kasi alam natin yung mga aminoglycoside, ototoxic to the fetus and should not be used during pregnancy. So ito pa yung mga other important considerations. Again, for pregnancy, we can also give pyridoxine kasi yung side effect ng isoniazid, which is the peripheral neuropathy, ito yung i-replace niya yung pyridoxine. Yung iba naman here, hindi masyado tinatanong except for the HIV co-infection. Okay. So next question, a 25-year-old male complains of fever, initial dysuria, and monoarticular arthritis involving the right knee. So before we answer this, what do you think would be your clinical impression for this patient? So with these symptoms, sama-sama na fever, dysuria, arthritis, tapos yung age niya i-consider din. Septic or gonococcal arthritis. Kasi yung risk factor niya, usually 20 to 40 years old, tapos combination nitong tatlo. So what we give is ceftriaxone. Kasi usually patients may have, we suspect gonococcal arthritis for this patient. And the drug of choice for gonorrhea is ceftriaxone 1 gram every 24 hours. Additional lang, third generation cephalosporins have expanded gram-negative spectrum, pero less yung effect niya sa gram-positive. Pero yun, basta usually gonococcal ceftriaxone ang bibigay natin. Okay. Next question, a 50-year-old male presents in the emergency room due to severe chest pain, which started an hour ago. So the ECG shows ST elevation in V1 to V6, and the best drug to relieve the pain because it results in reperfusion is, so dito medyo nakaka-confuse siya kasi unang tinanong, best drug to relieve the pain and then results in reperfusion. Tapos yung key bigla, metoprolol. So parang magtataka kayo bakit metoprolol. So I think they submitted also for correction dito. Hindi ko lang sure if natanggap na siya. So the most suitable answer for this one is streptokinase, because streptokinase is a fibrinolytic drug, meaning it lyses the thrombi na form, yung clot na na-form through activation ng plasmin. Thereby, it leads to reperfusion. Yun yung tinatanong nila na dun sa question. So the general indications for giving streptokinase is acute STEMI. It may also be given for patients with pulmonary embolism, DVT, thrombophlebitis, acute ischemic stroke within 3 hours of symptom onset. So just to further elaborate on the choices given to us, so morphine is an opiate analgesic used to relieve moderate to severe pain. So kunyari kung kinot off na lang yung question to relieve pain, morphine agad yung isasagot natin. Kasi usually given to sa pain graded 8 to 10 out of 10. So ito yung MOA niya, usually sa pain modulation centrally by binding to the mu-opioid receptors. So next naman, so magtataka tayo bakit metoprolol. Kasi usually ang beta blockers, binibigay siya once the patient is stable. And based sa case, nasa ER pa lang siya, kakarating niya. And hindi pwedeng ibigay agad yung metoprolol. So pwede to kung if we want to prevent recurrence ng MI, or kasi it prevents cardiac remodeling, it decreases the myocardial requirements or the demand kasi it decreases the heart rate and blood pressure and contractility. Pero it does not necessarily leads to reperfusion once na may MI siya during that period. So ayun, nasubmit naman na yung correction for that. So next is enoxaparin. So pwede natin isipin, why not enoxaparin? So, ito kasi, usually pag enoxaparin, hindi niya nababind yung thrombin na nandun na sa clot. And especially if ST elevation, MI, hindi niya na kaya i-dissolve yung clot na na-form na yon. That's why we use thrombolytics. Okay, so it is administered before revascularization. Usually, pag kunyari, bibigay natin to sa mga patients undergoing PCI or yung stenting sa coronary angiography vessel. Sorry. Okay. So this is the most appropriate drug to give a 10-year-old boy admitted for acute myelogenous leukemia with a high blast cell count. So the answer for this one is hydroxyurea. So this is based sa, yung mga notes pala here based sa pharmacology handouts natin nung second year. So hydroxyurea is indicated for blast crisis in AML to rapidly lower the blast count. Kasi nakaspecify dun sa question, AML with high blast cell count. Pero if kunyari sinabi lang sa atin may AML yung patient, the drug of choice would be cytarabine. Okay? Kasi masyadong specific yung question nila, blast crisis, kaya hydroxyurea yung answer. So ito naman yung other indications dun sa choices. Pag vincristine, it is given for patients with ALL, lymphoma, or Wilms tumor. Ito rin, methotrexate, ALL, lymphomas, breast cancer, head and neck, osteogenic sarcoma, and usually, ano ba ang tawag ito? Yung MOA ng methotrexate, as we know, pwede rin siya tanungin, dihydrofolic acid reductase inhibitor. Kaya siya binibigay natin yung leucovorin to increase, or folinic acid to increase the folic acid levels para ma-avoid yung possible side effects niya. So next question, this is an outcome for a clinical question on harm from treatment with fluoroquinolones. Ito, nahalo siya dun sa iba, feel ko clean up na, pero medyo related pa rin sa pharma. So, we know na ang fluoroquinolones, ang common adverse effect niya is tendon rupture. So, it has increased risk for Achilles tendinitis and rupture, especially during the first month of exposure to the drug. So, ayan, usually, palagi ang tinatanong, fluoroquinolone, tendon rupture, ang fluoroquinolone. So, ano yung mga example ng fluoroquinolone? Sila yung may fluoxacin, ciprofloxacin, levofloxacin. Yun yung adverse effect niya na gusto nating iwasan. Okay. Next question. So, Miguel is experiencing localized back pain with a severity score of 9 out of 10 due to prostate cancer, which has spread to the spine. So based on the WHO stepladder approach to pain control, the drug of choice is, so the answer for this one is morphine. So ito yung sinasabi nila na WHO analgesic ladder. Kapag mild pain lang, kapag kunyari sinabi sa atin ng patient na 1 out of 10 to 3 out of 10, ang binibigay natin yung mga NSAIDs or paracetamol. Ito yung mas specific niyan. Paracetamol or NSAID. Tapos naman kapag moderate pain, kapag scale is 4 out of 6, 4 to 6 pala, we give a weak opioid such as codeine, dihydrocodeine, and tramadol. Lastly, severe pain, kapag sobrang hindi na kaya ng patient, then we can give strong opioids. Tapos dito under si morphine. And then actually nandun din si fentanyl. Pero usually we give fentanyl kapag chemotherapy pain reliever. Okay. So next question, a 65-year-old postmenopausal woman has a history of hypertension, dyslipidemia, and chronic stable angina. So her current medications include atenolol, simvastatin, and sublingual nitroglycerin. So sinabi dito, she has allergies or intolerance to aspirin. Nagkakaroon daw siya ng angioedema and enalapril. Tapos alam natin ang common side effect ng ACE, is cough, secondary to increase in bradykinin. Kaya sabi, ang tanong dito, what other drug should be added to reduce the risk for cardiovascular events? So the answer for this question is clopidogrel. So binibigay ko yung clopidogrel usually kapag intolerant yung patient sa aspirin. And same siya ng indications, it may prevent stroke or cardiovascular events, future cardiovascular events by reducing platelet aggregation. Tapos yung MOA niya, it inhibits the ADP pathway of platelets. And according to the CAPRI trial, it showed significant reduction in the rate of ischemic events in favor of clopidogrel. Kaya siya yung answer for this question. Parang ang tinanong kasi, ano yung pwede mong alternative for aspirin? Kasi hindi siya makapag-take ng aspirin, pero meron siyang chronic stable angina. Okay. So next question, a 68-year-old with diabetes mellitus and bronchiectasis was admitted because of a 5-day history of cough, fever, and dyspnea. So the treatment that is appropriate for the patient, if the patient has a CURB-65 score of 2, is the answer for this one is piperacillin tazobactam plus azithromycin. So bakit may isip mo agad, bakit piptaz yung binigay? Important dito, tingnan natin din yung comorbid ng patient. So una sinabi rin, cough, fever, dyspnea, we know na may pneumonia yung patient. Kaso sabi, diabetic siya. So usually, pag diabetic yung patient, they have this poses as a risk factor for Pseudomonas infection. Tapos kapag sinabi namang CURB-65 na score ng 2, we consider hospitalization for supervised treatment. So this is based from the Philippine Clinical Practice Guidelines for Community-Acquired Pneumonia Management. Ito, so risk for Pseudomonas, we give Piptaz as is nung nasa choice, Piptaz plus azithromycin. Okay, so clear naman ba so far? May questions ba or mabilis masyado?
Okay naman for me, LA. Anyone else?
Okay naman. Okay, so if you have any questions, okay. So ito, medyo onti lang din naman yung questions for pharma. So sa written ration naman, written revalida, sorry. Okay, ito naman yung next natin. So a patient consulted because of 2 weeks of cough and weight loss with a sputum smear result of positive 3 AFB. So he was started on quadruple anti-cox therapy, and after a month, the platelet count was 50,000. So ang question, which can cause thrombocytopenia? So particular here is rifampicin kasi daw rifampicin-induced thrombocytopenia is secondary to the antibodies, which fixes the complement on the platelets, resulting in platelet destruction. So pwede rin kasi isoniazid, pero usually ang most commonly asked is rifampicin, or most commonly na nagkakos ng thrombocytopenia is rifampicin. And dun sa choices, walang isoniazid, so the correct answer would be rifampicin. Okay. So here naman, a patient was brought to the hospital because of fever and jaundice. So the diagnostic workup points for chronic hepatitis B infection, the answer here is tenofovir. So bakit tenofovir? And bakit hindi yung ibang choices? So according to our handouts then, this is indicated for chronic active hepatitis B infection. And dito sa baba ng slide, we can see other drugs indicated or can be used for Hepa B infection. So ang advantage ng tenofovir is that it produces a virologic response and histologic improvement more than adefovir. And dito, from the choices, walang ibang under ng Hepa B infection. So ito yung, ayan. Ito yung ibang choices. So yung ganciclovir, indicated siya for cytomegalovirus. So how I remember this, ganciclovir, GA, so anti-cytomegalovirus, yun yung usually drug of choice for CMV. Tapos naman, ito yung other drugs indicated for CMV, valganciclovir, foscarnet. Tapos, zidovudine, indicated naman siya for patients with HIV. So zidovudine is a kind of nucleoside and nucleotide reverse transcriptase inhibitor. And it is active for HIV-1 to HTLV. Usually, it is used as post-exposure prophylaxis for HIV-exposed healthcare workers. Okay, so the next choice is sofosbuvir. So it is an anti-hepatitis C agent, hindi B. Kasi ito yung mga Hepa C agents natin. If you want to familiarize yourself, no need naman to memorize. Tapos, so its mechanism of action is that it is an NS5B RNA polymerase inhibitor. And usually, binibigay siya together with PEG interferon alpha plus ribavirin. Basta pag Hepa B, usually tenofovir or lamivudine yung binibigay sa atin na choice. Tenofovir, lamivudine. Okay. So next naman, so a patient with multiple palpable maculopapular rashes was diagnosed with Hinox-Schönlein purpura. So what is the most appropriate steroid regimen? So kung mapansin mo, lahat nga sila here steroid, pero yung methylprednisolone at bedtime, hydrocortisone at bedtime, and then dexamethasone every other day. So ang correct question dito is yung prednisone at 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. So tinry ko siya hanapin sa handouts and sa book. So wala yung specific explanation niya. Pero what I saw is that it is considered best to take the corticosteroids in the morning kasi di ba we know that cortisol is released in a diurnal pattern and mostly pinakamataas siya sa morning. Kaya parang sinasabayan natin yung pag-release ng katawan natin ng cortisol. Kaya the most suitable is prednisone at 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. And systemic glucocorticoids, yung indication niya is to treat the subcutaneous edema, nephritis, for patients with IgA vasculitis, or also known as the Henoch-Schönlein purpura. Okay? And then, yung doon naman kasi sa dexamethasone every other day, yung nakalagay kasi na preferred dosage niya, prednisone 1 mg per kilogram per day. So every day for 2 weeks. So it shortens the duration of the abdominal pain and joint symptoms. Okay. Yung mga mga mechanism of action and classification, familiarize na lang tayo para in the interest of time. Okay. So a 25-year-old consulted because of palpitation and weight loss. So she was given methimazole and after 2 weeks developed high fever and sore throat. So which of the following would you do? Would you prescribe an antibiotic, shift to propylthiouracil, or reduce the dose of the drug, or discontinue the drug? So ano ba ang indication kapag nag-develop yung patient ng high fever and sore throat? So accordingly, ito yung most common symptom kapag merong agranulocytosis na yung patient. And ito yung most serious reaction, adverse reaction ng methimazole and thioamides, especially if, kunyari, more than 40 milligrams a day. Kapag nag-alarm symptoms na may high fever and sore throat yung patient, it may be life-threatening. So the most ideal way to manage this patient is to discontinue the drug and consult the physician for possible shift in management. Okay, so here naman, what is the most appropriate drug to prescribe to a 20-year-old who plans to travel an area in southern Palawan with multi-drug resistant falciparum before departure? So tinatanong sa atin pre-exposure prophylaxis. So ito, i-discuss ko isa-isa yung choices, but the answer here is doxycycline. Usually, these drugs used for prophylaxis blocks the link between the exoerythrocytic and erythrocytic stage and given to individuals who intend to travel to malaria endemic areas. So ito yung commonly binibigay na drugs for prophylaxis. So i-discuss natin isa-isa. So yung atovaquone, Proguanil, binibigay siya 1 to 2 days before travel until 7 days after the return. Doxycycline naman, which is the answer for our question, is given also 1 to 2 days before travel and 4 weeks after return. Ito din, yung sa mefloquine, same, 1 week before naman, 4 weeks after. Chloroquine, and then Primaquine. So i-familiarize nyo tong 5 drugs na to given for chemoprophylaxis. Ito yung mas specific niya na indication. So kapag chloroquine, kapag hindi resistant yung area sa falciparum, without resistant chloroquine falciparum. Tapos naman, kapag naman chloroquine resistant, usually ang binibigay nating prophylaxis is atovaquone, Proguanil. Ganon din yung mefloquine. Tapos yung doxycycline kapag may multidrug resistant na. So ito, yan, multidrug resistant falciparum, doxycycline yung binibigay. And then Primaquine, as we know, usually ang tinatanong sa Primaquine, it prevents the relapse for the PVVAX and P-Ovale. So i-differentiate natin yung relapse sa recrudescence. Kapag relapse, meaning may hypnozoids. Usually, ibig sabihin may dormant phase and then mag-reactivate. So usually common to sa Plasmodium vivax and P-Ovale. So binibigay siya for radical cure. Kapag naman recrudescence, ibig sabihin non-detectable blood levels pero hindi pa siya completely eradicated. So yun yung usually recrudescence sa falciparum. So ito yung mga other choices na indications naman. So quinine is the drug of choice for treatment for severe falciparum malaria. So kapag may CNS involvement na sa patient, ang binibigay natin is quinine or kapag merong chloroquine resistance sa area. And then it can also be given for patients who's pregnant in the first trimester. So ang palatandaan ko dito, parang the pregnant queen, ganun. So, yun yung indication niya. Tapos naman, ang azithromycin, hindi siya usually ginagamit for malaria kasi it is found to be suboptimal or hindi niya napoproduce yung target effect natin na gusto makita. So ito, primaquine may also be used as alternative chemoprophylaxis then for all species. Pero ito yung usual na tinatanong. Okay, so this table naman, so we can see here that yung mga drugs is able to inactivate or able to destroy pala yung all four species sa erythrocytic phase. Pero ang specific here sa primaquine, makikita nyo na may exoerythrocytic phase action siya against Vivax and Ovale. Kaya siya yung given for the radical cure. Tapos naman, ito for gametocytes, meron din alalahanin natin yung chloroquine. Meron siyang action for the gametocytes ng Vivax, Ovale, and malaria. Quinine, primaquine, and artemisinin. Kaya siya binibigay for prophylaxis. Tapos, yung falciparum naman din, we give artemisinin kasi it is also active for the gametocytes ng falciparum. So next question, which of the following class of drugs used in the treatment of heart failure decreases afterload by decreasing peripheral vascular resistance through arterial dilation? So the answer for this question is ACE inhibitor. So why ACE inhibitor? We know that ACE inhibitors inhibits the activity of the enzyme, angiotensin converting enzyme, which reduces the production of angiotensin 2. And we know yung sa RAAS system, or it results, diba, sa usually kapag activated yun yung sympathetic activation na may vasoconstriction, increase in blood pressure. Kaya kapag inhibit natin yun, it leads to blood vessel dilation, thereby blood pressure is reduced secondary to decreased peripheral vascular resistance. So yun yung answer. So bakit hindi yung ibang choices yung answer? So kapag digitalis or digoxin, so ang effect niya mostly positive inotropic, meaning it increases the contractility, and negative chronotropic decreases the heart rate. So hindi yung action niya sa arteriolar dilation. Kaya hindi to yung answer natin. And usually, it is indicated for patients na merong atrial fibrillation and heart failure. So kapag yun yung tinatanong din sa question, kunyari, may case and then atrial fibrillation. Tapos what yung drug to give is digoxin. Tapos beta blockers naman, yung mechanism, yung effects niya naman din, it is a negative chronotropic and negative inotropic. So it means that it decreases the heart rate, contractility, and cardiac output. Pero makita nyo here, wala siya masyado sa, pag hindi siya selective, kunyari propranolol, beta-2 blockade, it may lead to vasoconstriction. Kaya baliktad pa nga siya dun sa question na arteriolar dilation. Okay. So next is sympatholytics. So sympatholytics, kapag sinabi mo ano ang difference ng sympatholytics, usually central yung effect niya. So it leads to decreased arteriolar resistance and increased venous capacitance, and may lead to reflex tachycardia. So pwedeng mag-hypotension yung patient and then may reflex tachycardia. Tapos dun kasi sa case natin, sabi, meron treatment of heart failure. Yung isang effect na possible to sa sympatholytic agent is salt and water retention. And we don't want that for our patients with heart failure kasi ma-aggravate yung congestion niya, di ba? So, kaya the best answer would be ACE inhibitors. Okay. So here naman, a 65-year-old male consulted because of blurring of vision and was diagnosed to have glaucoma. So which of the following drugs can be given for this patient? So the answer for this one is acetazolamide. So ito, So acetazolamide is a carbonic anhydrase inhibitor, and it is used for glaucoma because the mechanism is through lowering the aqueous humor production. So alam natin, di ba, ang acetazolamide, diuretic siya, which acts on the proximal convoluted tubule. Okay. Later ko i-discuss, may isa pang slide. So here, so the carbonic anhydrase inhibition decreases bicarbonate reabsorption, which have an overall effect of 45% inhibition of the whole kidney bicarbonate reabsorption. So ito, based dun sa pharma handouts din natin, the primary indication ng acetazolamide is for glaucoma. Ano pa yung isang indication niya na tinatanong? Yung mountain sickness. Binibigay din siya for mountain sickness. Okay, later, I have another slide for the discussion nung sa diuretics, parang overview lang. Okay, so here naman, a patient was brought to the emergency room because of cough and shortness of breath. So if this patient is asthmatic and was prescribed with erythromycin, which of the following anti-asthma drug will require monitoring of plasma drug concentration? So bakit ba natin kailangan i-monitor yung plasma drug concentration? Usually kapag merong narrow therapeutic index, meaning pag onting adjust lang dun sa therapeutic dose, kunyari tumaas ka bigla doon, pwede siya magkaroon ng adverse effects, which we don't want sa patient. Kaya natin siya i-monitor para constant yung plasma levels niya. And usually board question ito, tinatanong sino ang may narrow therapeutic index dito sa choices. The answer is theophylline. So yun. So the desired plasma concentration for this drug is 5 to 20 milligram per liter. So once more than 20 na kasi siya, yun, doon nalalabas yung mga adverse effects niya. Kaya kapag bibigay tayo ng caution for patients who takes theophylline for their asthma. Yan. So again, so yung theophylline, it has the high level, which is a toxic level, inhibits the phosphodiesterase, increases CAMP, and thereby resulting in smooth muscle relaxation. So kapag smooth muscle relaxation, mayroong bronchodilation for patients. Ito, yun nga, again, narrow therapeutic index. Okay. So a patient with acute renal failure has hyperkalemia. So which of the following diuretics you prescribe increase urine output and enhance the potassium excretion? So alam naman natin, itong lahat, yung furosemide, spironolactone, aldoside, it increases urine output. Pero ang additional question kasi dito, which one enhances the potassium excretion? So the answer is furosemide. Kasi we know that furosemide inhibits the NKCC2 transporter in the thick ascending loop. So kapag thick ascending loop, so this is also called as high ceiling diuretics kasi it leads to the decreased sodium chloride reabsorption, decreasing lumen positive potential that comes from potassium recycling. Tapos it increases also calcium and magnesium excretion. So kapag loop diuretic, ang bumababa sodium, chloride, potassium, magnesium, and calcium. Basically, most electrolytes. Plus, it is usually indicated for patients who has pulmonary edema or edematous states. And dito rin, hyperkalemia. If you want to excrete the excess potassium in our body, we prescribe patients furosemide. Okay. So here, ito yung isa-isa ng diuretic. Just a review. So kapag carbonic anhydrase inhibitors, again, ang example nito yung acetazolamide, it acts on the proximal convoluted tubule. So it prevents the reabsorption of sodium bicarbonate. Tapos naman kapag osmotic diuretic, ang example nito is mannitol. So pwede rin tanongin sa atin, so kunyari a patient presented with increased intracranial pressure. So ang binibigay usually is mannitol. And then loop diuretics, as previously mentioned, kapag thiazide naman sa distal convoluted tubule. So usually, saan ba ang binibigay yung thiazide? Doon siya sa algorithm with antihypertensive drugs together with ACE and ARBs, diba? ACE and ARBs plus hydrochlorothiazide. So, minsan we don't give immediately ACE inhibitors tapos diuretics muna. Pero usually combination na siya. For antihypertensive din siya. And then kapag naman aldosterone antagonist, it may act in the sodium-potassium channel or the ENaC channels. So example nung aldosterone antagonist, yung sa spironolactone, kapag naman ENaC, sila triamterene, amiloride, and then ADH antagonist, sila terlipressin, and ito yung sa may vasopressin. Kasi pag antidiuretic hormone antagonist, okay. So kapag naman sa antidiuretic hormone antagonist, it acts on the collecting duct. Pwede rin tanungin sa atin, kasi dalawa yun cortical collecting tubule, tapos collecting duct. So ang palatandaan ko, pag aldosterone, spironolactone, letter T, collecting tubule. Pag collecting duct, antidiuretic hormone. So sa collecting duct siya. So mas dulo. And doon yung, it prevents further reabsorption of water. Okay. So ito yung mga example ng drugs. Again, familiarize yourself kasi pwedeng ibigay siya na sama-sama and then walang classification. So ito yung mga thiazide, hydrochlorothiazide, and then ito, potassium sparing. So para lang common yung dun sa, dalawa kasing group yung sa potassium sparing. Merong spironolactone tsaka eplerenone. Sila yung aldosterone antagonist. Tapos naman amiloride, triamterene, parehong may AM. Yun yung palatandaan ko. Triamterene, amiloride, more on sa ENaC or ENaC channels, sodium channels. Okay. So this one, which of the following antibiotics has the potential for causing damage to the growing cartilage? So ito common din tong tinatanong, ciprofloxacin. So ciprofloxacin induces cartilage damage through chelation, meaning nagko-combine yung kinochelate niya or nagko-complex yung mga calcium or magnesium. So it leads to the deficiency of functionally available divalent ions, yung mga minerals na kailangan ng cartilage growth natin. Tapos therefore it has impact on the endochondral development and subsequent formation of subchondral bone. So para lang ma-familiarize pa natin, may mga additional palatandaan lang ako. So kapag we know yung vancomycin, mga Redman syndrome, tapos amikacin, which is an aminoglycoside, tatlo yun Pwede siyang ototoxic, nephrotoxic, and vestibulotoxic. So, hindi ko na siya nasulat dito, pero you can take note na pag ototoxic, ang palatandaan ko, bili mo ko ng car. So, kunyari, bili mo ko ng auto. So, yung yun yung tatlong aminoglycoside na commonly nagkakos ng ototoxicity. So, neomycin, amikacin, and kanamycin. So, auto. And then, kapag naman vestibulotoxic, isipin mo merong vestibule sa SG or Singapore, ganon. So SG, streptomycin and gentamicin. So yun, kasi pag tinanong, ang streptomycin ba mas ototoxic or vestibulotoxic? So mas correct answer na vestibulotoxic siya. So yun, streptomycin, gentamicin, vestibulotoxic. Tapos last, nephrotoxic naman, ang palatandaan sa nephrotoxic is NGT. Nephrotoxic pero NGT. So neomycin, gentamicin, and tobramycin. So NGT, nephro. NGT, nephro. Isipin mo may pinasok na NGT pero hindi siya pwede sa. Basta yun ang palatanda, how we remember it usually. So and again, ototoxic, Auto, SG, vestibule. And then last is nephro, which is NGT. Okay. So, yun lang yung sa discussion for pharma. Pero if you have additional questions or you want me to discuss, you can ask, you can put it in sa chat box since may time pa naman ata.
Yay. Thanks, Eli.
So, any
So,
questions?
any questions kayo, input nyo na lang sa chat box.
So, medyo quick lang yung discussion since tig 1 hour lang. So, yan. Or you can message me naman din if you want clarifications. Okay.
Thanks, Eli, for teaching pharma. Super hard subject. Wala akong maintindihan. Pero dami na akong na-gets dahil sa'yo. Thank you!